yourselves?
All right. Hi, my name is Matthew. I'll go first, by the way. Hi, my name is Matthew. Pronouns he, him, but just address us in its entirety. So good luck and have fun.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm audible, but Bernard here. Good luck to all teams. I'm going to be a panelist of I am. Thank
Chris,
All right.
Foli here,
Thank
panelists, all the best to all teams.
Addo-Obeng, Opoku-Agyeman here. All the best.
All right. Thank you. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Ruqayyah Abbas-Yusuf, and I will be chairing this round. To everyone here, congrats on making it this far, and good luck in the round. So, with no further delay, can we have the Prime Minister to start off this debate? Here.
Yeah, just for clarity, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. So my POI preferences are, in the 5th minute probably. And sorry if I might not take your POI. Yeah, pronouns he, him, and let's have a fun round. Okay. Starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, it is important to understand that the basic need or the basic reaction or request for every individual within any type of society is to have the personal needs or the provision of personal needs or the accomplishment of personal goals. This is important. Hold this thought. Secondly, you need to understand that there are two things here that we are trying to debate about. One, an underperforming democracy. Two, a benevolent dictatorship. Let me explain to you what an underperforming democracy looks like simply. An underperforming democracy is democracy that is inherently basically unhinged by things like corruption, things like embezzlement of funds, things like unaccountability by the government, things like basically the illusion of choice, which we're going to go deeper into, and also things like just generally an underperforming economy or underperforming states. Now, usually when you see this type of economies or where you see this type of societies are in third world countries, places like Nigeria, maybe India, maybe Uganda, so on and so forth. I don't really know, but you need to understand that this usually occurs within third world countries, and this is where we are trying to frame the debate at. Secondly, you need to understand what a benevolent dictatorship means. Now, dictatorship usually occur or usually are presented by something like military regimes or military interventions. This is something that is happening in present day. I've forgotten the African colonies, Mali, and so on and so forth. These are things that are happening. Benevolent dictatorships look like a situation where an individual is the sole governor, sole president, sole decision maker, sole person to be held accountable, sole individual who makes all the decisions and who thinks about what is in the best interest of the individuals. Though it might be seen as a dictatorship, though that individual answers realistically or unrealistically, doesn't have a serious or form of unhinged type of removal mechanism, the realities are this is better than underperforming. We prefer this to an underperforming democracy for several reasons. We are going to tell you them. Now, first of all, any bench that can show you which side of the world gives the best accountability, number one. Secondly, gives the best form of leadership, number two. Thirdly, provides the common needs of the common individual within those societies wins the debate. That is what the clashes or the what should be this debate should be judged off. Any panel that can show you these three things has won this debate. Firstly, on accountability. In underperforming democracies, they try to tell you that this is a democracy, this is something, this is an institution where it's for the people, by the people, but so on and so forth. But the realities are it's bullshit because they try to present an illusion of choice. This means that most individuals within the society feel cheated because the realities are what this is categorized by is rigging of elections, as we've seen in places like maybe Nigeria and so on and so forth, where individuals think that they are going to go and vote for a certain leader and they do not. And the realities are they think that within this democracy, because of how it is presented, they have a say in the decision making, while realistically there is no say. So they have an illusion of choice within this democracies, and therefore accountability is unfathomable. The realities are an individual who is not who doesn't have the votes or the choice or will of the people can never be a presiding or have any sort of accountability to these people. Secondly, on our own side of the bench, when we talk about a benevolent dictatorship, you have a clear identity of who the leader is. There's no illusion of choice. There's no illusion of for the people, by the people, and all that bullshit. The realities are you have a clear identity of who this is, and there is a checking mechanism. This is where the accountability comes in. Now, the opposition can try to tell you that, oh, this dictatorship, no one can say anything and anybody can be pushed in. We've told you that this usually happens in forms of military regimes and military coups. Now, the realities are the checking mechanisms, though they may seem abstract, are the coup d'etats. What you see as in a state like Nigeria, the previous histories of whatsoever, what you tend to see within these types of states are when a leader, a dictator, that's probably what it is not doing well or doesn't have the best interest at heart. What you see is a coup d'etat. This happens in Nigeria. I'm using Nigeria a lot because this is the personal reference. This happened in Nigeria with Abacha and so on and so forth. This happens a lot. So there is a proper checking mechanism. There's a proper accountability system. Though it might seem a cake, but the realities are it is better than having an illusion of choice. Where places like Uganda, where they think that they have proper democracies or where they've experienced proper underperforming democracy and elections are being rigged. The realities are there is more accountability here because the checking mechanism is more trustworthy, more fair, and has a better way to be upheld. Secondly, on the terms of good leadership, on our word, we tell you that this benevolent dictatorship is characterized by an individual or a sole person who has the best interest at heart of these individuals. So this individual is more likely to or has a greater incentive due to the benevolent nature to do good things for the or to try to have good actions or whatsoever. In the world of the underperforming democracy or whatsoever you get, the realities are because of the illusion of choice, because of the broken systems you get within there is no proper accountability system, number one, and therefore because of that, the presidents, the governors feel like they can do anything without really doing these two leadership structures. Though different, one may seem like one may have a certain courage that might not be appreciated by a certain demographic. The other, even though it is appreciated, does not have any real value to the common man. Thirdly, on the most important thing, which world provides the best utility for the common man or for the citizens of that state? Now, within an underperforming democracy, an underperforming democracy translates inherently to just underperform. Since it's underperforming, we already know that this translates to things like inflation, high inflation rates, high mortgage rates, everything is on the high, and there are bad infrastructure, bad healthcare, so on and so forth. Now, within these systems, these individuals who think that they have a leader, or they have voted in a leader who think that they are for the people, who think that they are for the people, realistically have no choice or have no. Please, no badgering.
Sorry for your time is up. Well, we thank the Prime Minister for that fine speech. Um, as much as I will be timing you, kindly try to have your own timer as well, so that I wouldn't have to unmute and start to badger you. Thank you. So, with that, we welcome the leader of opposition. Start of the case for the opposition bench. Here.
I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, great. So I'll be taking POIs in the 5th minute. So no one should badger, or everyone should try as much as possible not to badger. There's rain falling around. At any point in time I become inaudible, please let me know. Yeah, and lastly, I'd like to dedicate this speech to the UHAS Debate Society. Yeah, okay. So I'll begin in 3, 2, 1. So, panel, first of all, we'd like to make some clarifications and responses before we move on to our main points, as to show to you why we do not prefer the benevolent dictatorship to an underdeveloped democracy. Right. Okay. So, to a couple of responses before I begin. Yes, we do buy into the whole general framing about what an underdeveloped democracy look like. However, we do not buy into the case where you scroll it into a third world country, because one, we do believe that there have been first world countries who have had unstable democracies or underperforming democracies in a long while. This debate cannot be scored to only third world countries, right? But also, two panel would also like to make a lot of responses as to opening government's two main claims, right? They say, one, accountability is better on their side, and two, they have better leadership, right? Panel, we are going to show it to you why, even on accountability, we beat them on their own premise, right? One, they talk about how in underperforming democracies, there is a possibility of rigging of elections, etc. Panel, we tell you that yes, there is this possibility. However, when there are certain structures which have been put in place to ensure that rigging of elections do not occur, we, in our world, we get to have at least a 90% assurance that there isn't going to be rigging of elections, simply because the mechanisms and checks that are in place are better, as opposed to how they try to scroll it to a third world country. Right? But panel, even if there's going to be rigging of elections and would have maybe someone who was not properly elected, that is right. Can we still tell you that there are several layers of checks and balances? That's the first one. Tell you that in the worst case scenario, the parliament in our world, where the parliament has representatives from the people's side, right, the citizens of the country, can still impeach the president if he or she is going contrary to the will of the people, right? So you can tell you that there is media, and in our world, there's freedom for media to operate on a very large scale, right? To the extent that this media can mount pressure on the president to change. So even in underperforming democracies such as Ghana, where we had the whole Galamsey issue, pressure has been able to be mounted on the president for him to take some level of actions to address this, right? And four, you have freedom of speech to address this. Panel, the opening government has come and proved why all these mechanisms do not work in order to even beat us on accountability, right? But panel, let's also look at their whole checking mechanism that they claim was coup d'etat, right? Panel, the reason why a coup d'etat as a checking mechanism is far worse is because, one, this is marked with the destruction of property and loss of lives, because in coup d'etats, things becomes very aggressive, very dangerous, because what the person who is in power does not want to leave, and hence they have to use very forceful means to push this person out, which leads to like people losing their lives and the rest, right? Two, also tell you that there's going to be general ostracization of the country from the international community, simply because the international community is going to now view you as a country which has become very oppressive. You are going to lose investors, you are going to lose people who might even want to tour your country for revenue. You are losing a lot of things, and that's why I tell you that this checking mechanism is wrong, right? But panel also on how they say they are individual. The panel will also give you 2 layers of analysis to show you why one person ruling a country, in any case, whether they are benevolent or not, is still very wrong. Panel one, right? This individual is human, right? And every individual is capable of being corrupted by power, right? Even the best of the best, someone like maybe Gaddafi, like this, who was considered like a very good person, are getting to the end of his tenure. The people in his own country started to view him as someone who was very oppressive to them. And as panel, we can see that even in this instance where we had someone who was like benevolent as a dictator, it still ended up very badly. We cannot buy into this. Two, panel, the people in the country don't have the ability to change or don't have the choice of change, right? Because at the end of the day, ideologies change. People in the country shaped wanting something else. If you as a person are representing an ideal which they do not want, the people cannot change it, and hence are stuck in a very oppressive cycle where one person is ruling them in perpetuity, regardless of whether they are benevolent or not, right? But panel, let's also come and like look at the problem of benevolence in of itself and why we cannot even buy into a dictatorship, whether it's benevolent or not, right? Panel one on the subjectivity of benevolence, right? Panel has to understand that you considering yourself as benevolent is different from what someone else considers as benevolent, right? So at the end of the day, you can't really get a general consensus of everybody in the country viewing you as benevolent, regardless of your actions or not, right? So at the point where people do not view you as benevolent, they should have the choice to change, because you are ruling them. You are having power to affect the way they are living their life. People should have the ability to change their situations. At the point where they can't change their situation, it's very bad, right? But two, I've also analyzed you how power corrupts, right? In a state where power is corrupting people, where power has corrupted you and you change from your benevolence, right? At the end of the day, what do we see? People can't hold you accountable, because you might end up what, imprisoning them, sentencing them to lifetimes in jail, etc. And tell you on the lack of accountability, right? Panel, we believe that in their world, whether OG
You're
or
right.
CG, to be able to prove accountability, they have to show us how, one, if everybody in the country, or if like a large majority of people in the country believe that you are not like the best fit for them, how these people are going to be able to what, move you out of power without necessarily harming the economy and harming the state as a whole. If they have not been able to prove this, then they are forced, right? But panel, let us even come and show you why in the worst case scenario, as an underperforming democracy, why at the end of the day we still believe that it is far better. Number one, panel, on the whole argument about an underperforming democracy, right? Panel, we believe that an underperforming democracy does not spell doom. It does not mean that what, even if there's going to be corruption or even if there's going to be embezzlement, which every other country faces, right? It doesn't mean that at the end of the day, you as a country cannot change, right? Panel, you can put in reforms there, you can put in policies which helps check this better. You can ensure that people are able to address you or address the leading government in a way in which they can get their voices heard and have the ability to change their present circumstances as well. At a point where in an benevolent dictatorship, you can't do that. We believe that at the end of the day, that is something which is very problematic and harms people, right? But panel two, we believe that what, in democracy, you have the ability to learn from mistakes. Right? People can choose wrong leaders, and at the end of the day, if that leadership does not work for them, or if the leader is putting in policies that does not work for them, these people can what, change the leader and elect someone who is better, right? But we also believe in the principle of citizen participation, right? Where as a citizen, you should be allowed to be able to what, change your circumstances, or you should be allowed to participate in your leadership or in ruling yourself, because inherently as a human being, you are being ruled by someone, and you should have the ability to say that this is not something which works for me. At the point where oppression becomes the order of the day, we believe that what we will take an underperforming democracy as opposed to benevolent dictatorship. Thank you.
All right. We thank the leader of opposition for that fine speech. Can we have the Deputy Prime Minister? Here.
Well, please, am I audible? Just wanted to confirm before I start my speech. Hello, please, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible, but your background seems to be very echoey.
Okay, sorry. What I'll do is I'll log the call and then join back. Let me hope for that to be better.
All right.
Okay.
Chair, please, my phone is about to die. This is the LO speaking, so I would like to log off and join back. But my second speaker will be here to give her speech. I hope that's okay.
All right, that's fine. That's all right.
Okay.
Yes, you're audible.
Okay, cool. So I'll be starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. So panel, I'll just first of all start with rebuttals before I go on to reiterate my partner's argument, because I think majority of what he said are some arguments that are valid and actually beats what we get from the opening opposition. But then secondly, I'll also add one extension. So the first thing, panel, that we need to note before I go into rebuttal is simple, is that state has the fundamental duty to secure the basic needs and welfare of their citizens. If a state can't fulfill the social contract with their citizens, that it means that all the other democratic principles, like things like freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and all that we get or that Opoku clamors for becomes irrelevant or second. At the end of the day, this gives us the reason to actually question a democracy that is not able to fulfill their basic job. If it's not able to fulfill their basic job, then we think we don't need it, and we think a dictatorship that actually caters to these needs and responsibilities, even though it kind of restricts people's right to some extent, is relatively better. Secondly, there's also this myth that we get from the OO, and which we could get from the closing of position on the solar system. Democratic government for now is bad. It will continuously get better. We think this is flawed because at the end of the day, even doesn't necessarily mean that the citizens would actually be able to survive the kind of effects that this kind of underperforming democracy would cause to them. But then secondly, the tendency or probability of these democracies even becoming better is very bad. Why? Because what we have in a whole lot of democratic system of government where they have bad and corrupt leaders is that these leaders try as much as possible to streamline the power so that only them or people under their control are going to be in government. So it means that even individuals who want to even make the government better in the first place are not allowed to even go inside this place. But then secondly, the fact that these individuals or citizens are suffering means that they can't even make good or correct decisions because they are easily swayed by things like maybe money or resources and all those kind of stuff. Going on to responses. Firstly, is on why the several checks and balances that OO claim for will not necessarily work in this particular sense. The first thing is this: we think that when a society is facing a whole lot of issues in terms of public healthcare, in terms of access to resources, and in terms of infrastructural development, at the end of the day, the citizens do not necessarily cater, even if they are put into positions of power where they can check these guys, right? They are going to be, their whole mentality and whole thought would be on how they will survive. And this is what which is what basically allows for things like corruption to go on addressed in a whole lot of democratic systems, because these individuals do not necessarily care about the government. What they care is about their own pocket and how they and their own family will survive. At the end of the day, we think that in a benevolent dictatorship, this is a benevolent dictatorship, so we can't say that these guys are oppressive. we can only assume that even though they restrict to some extent the rights and the rights of these individuals living in their states, they still care about the public. They still fulfill their responsibilities to the citizens. So it means at the end of the day that these citizens are going to actually respect them and also going to actually follow their commands. But then lastly, it means that they are going to actually do things like implement policies that actually favors them and make it better for their citizens. But then if what we will get from O is why or the incentive for these individuals to actually do this, the incentive is very simple. Notice that compared to democracies where you have things like safety net of elections where, if you do a particular election and an individual wins it, irrespective of whether he's bad or not, they can't basically impeach him to some extent, maybe until after some years, or remove him from that position of power until maybe his tenure is finished. A benevolent dictatorship does not have that safety net. So it means that if they lose the trust of the people, it leads to things like maybe coup d'etats, which is necessarily dangerous for them, and basically leads to things like direct harm for this individual or leaders. At the end of the day, if they want to remain legitimate and if they want to remain relevant in that society, they have to make sure that citizens are on their side. Because if the citizens back them up, then nobody can remove them from power. But if they lose that connect with the citizens, it means anyone can come and fuck them up and remove them. And at the end of the day, they'll either die or basically be imprisoned. In the first place is a better incentive than what you get in your side of the world, where if these democratic leaders, basically which is underperforming, fails to fulfill their responsibilities, they either do two things: blame it on the other political party because they have an opposition to blame it on, or secondly, they just apologize and say, oh, we'll do better next time. Compared to your world, in our world, there's a direct checking mechanism and direct harm because these individuals will pursue them, the citizens will uprise against them. So it means there's very much big incentive for these individuals to actually ensure that the citizens are happy to prevent those kind of things from happening. But then secondly is on the concentration of power argument that you get from the opening opposition. Why we think that this might be a valid reason, we also think that since this motion already assumes that these guys are good individuals that actually caters and listens to the citizens' pleas and struggles and maybe fulfills their responsibilities, we don't think that in this case concentration of power is a necessarily bad thing. Because as long as that individual is doing what he do in that position of power and is also listening to the citizens, even if the power is concentrated, we think it does two things which my partner explains. One, it enables that individual to actually do things like efficient and quick judgment, because in this particular economy or state, there's an urgency, there's a urgent need for individuals to actually do things, for these individuals to actually address a lot of issues that are affecting the public, like poverty and all those kind of stuff, compared to what you get from underperforming democracies where there's a whole backlog in terms of legislative processes or even things like policy deadlock and all those kind of stuff. We think that a benevolent dictatorship allows for easier decision making and quicker responses to all these kind of issues. But then lastly, my partner also talks about how there's strong accountability to this outcome. It means at the end of the day, if these individuals do this metric or do good things, the citizens praise them, the citizens allow them to actually maybe command them or even follow their command, which is beneficial for these individuals. Because even when it comes to international parties, the fact, as long as the international party sees that these citizens actually respect and also like allow for this kind of thing to happen, then they won't even necessarily have any with this community in the first place. At the end of the day, panel, we think we have been able to show you why our world is better for the citizens, and it's also better in terms of who better cares to the responsibility and duties that is supposed to be done in that particular role of position that we are proud to propose.
Okay, before the Deputy Prime Minister for that fine speech, can we have the Deputy Leader of Opposition to finish off the case for the opening? Here. Yes, you are.
Okay, please give me a sec to get my timer. Okay, I'm starting my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, first of all, I'd like to show opening how presidents would have an incentive to fulfill their responsibilities. First of all, they want to secure a second term for their party. So they would have no other option than to do what is right, follow the laws, so that they can get a second term and do more good for the country. Secondly, they would have to face consequences, criticisms from the people in their country and the international community if they should abuse the rights of their people or abuse their power. Not that in in government's world, they are excluded from international communities. Their world is a world where everything is centered on one person. There's no free press, there's no free media. People cannot get up and speak up against the government because what? For fear of silencing or fear of harm. That should tell you that these people do not have any proper checking mechanisms as they claim. They only come and tell you that, oh, they have a better checking mechanism. They have a better checking mechanism, but they don't go into details. They don't tell you what exactly this checking mechanism is. Then again, on this case of unlikeliness of a good governance system, we throughout history, we've had cases of people who have come with good intentions as benevolent dictators, but they end up destroying themselves. They end up destroying their country. We have the likes of Napoleon. All can come and claim all these cases to us and expect to win the case. Now to my argument. I have 4 levels of analysis. Is very, very subjective. The dictator might define it. The dictator might define it. The dictator's definition might be different as I would consider as a good governance. Please, done.
Yeah. Yeah, are you done with your speech?
Yes, please.
Oh, all right. So we thank the Deputy Leader of Opposition for that fine. We welcome, and we've come to the end of the opening half of this debate. Let's welcome the member of government to start off the closing half. Here. Yes, you're audible, but your volume is somewhat low.
Is it better now?
Yes, it is.
Great. Hello everyone. My name is Ya, pronounced she, her. My chat space is open, so if you have a POI, just drop it in the chat, tag your team, and I will call on you when I am ready. Please do not unmute your mic and interrupt my speech. I will be just a second to set my tone, sorry. Great. I'll be beginning my speech in 3, 2, 1. So the value of life inherently is an experience. It's just because you are alive doesn't mean that your life is valuable. What are you doing with your life? How well of a quality of life are you living? That's what people use to determine what life is. Life inherently in and of itself as it is not valuable. That's why you have people killing themselves every day. It means just because you have life, it doesn't mean you have everything. That means everything that you get largely from OG, like it doesn't really make sense, right? But then secondly, the biggest thing that I think OO leaves out that leaves them susceptible to the attacks from government bench is that they don't clearly differentiate what exactly a benevolent dictator looks like. So I'm going to do that. So notice that there's a difference why they use the word benevolence instead of just leaving it as a dictator. A benevolent dictator is somebody who is like falls to the like standard categorization of dictatorship, but they have the best interest of their peoples at heart, first of all. Secondly, they most likely do not go against these people's basic human rights and principles. They focus on the welfare of their people. Most likely, they are not people who like trample on the people's of rights through like violent means and so on and so forth. Thirdly, notice how these people carry out their like dictatorship, so to speak. They most likely refer to things like referendums, advisory councils. They have low-level elections. So that means you cannot change the head of state as a citizen, but there are things that you can do to channel your grievances that exist. That means that all those things that you get from side governments, that, oh, these people don't care what the citizens are talking about, these people don't listen to their citizens, the citizens have no way to channel their grievances. That's just a lie, because if they were indeed just a dictator, things would not exist. Because they are benevolent dictators, it means at their core, they have the interest of the people at heart. They want to listen to their people. They care about what their people are saying. Oh, I see you. I'll take you later. Before I get into rebuttals, I want you to understand what you're going to get exclusively from science teaching. We are going to show you, first of all, how this benevolent dictatorship betters the economy. It betters the social standing of the people. We get a better political climate. We have stronger rule of law, and we have a better standing in the international community. And lastly, how there's not going to be things like coup d'etats and the violent transition of power. That's the biggest pushback that you get from the government side, right? But then our first point on how we have like better economies and how we relate to the outside world. Notice that just because we're a dictatorship does not conform strictly to the traditional definition of a dictatorship. Benevolent dictators for their people. The welfare of their people is one that is at heart. It means most likely whatever economic policies that they put into place and the way in which, don't localize, I've seen you, I'll take you when I'm ready. The ways in which they put these structures into place and ones that are going to benefit the people. It means that whatever that they do, state is going to maintain control, make sure that things are existent within most likely the price range of the larger citizenry. They regulate things like licenses. They regulate things like licensure. That means if a private company wants to exist within that state space, they have to pay the state great amounts of money. And because they have more stable economies, people are going to want to come from outside and invest in that country. That whole pushback that you get from government side that, oh, just because they are dictatorship, people are going to cut them off, blah, 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 it's a lie. Even in status quo, we have seen that dictatorships have better economies than some so-called democracies. Look at places like Singapore, look at places like China. Economies, American, like the West is knocking on their doors, begging them, let us come and conduct business in your country because they realize that there's a high potential for them to make money. These people want to make money. It's not just because you're a dictatorship that they're going to throw you away. If they see that there's an opportunity for them to make money, they will come there. But then secondly, notice the impacts that it has on social cohesion on the society. Notice that these dictatorship thrive over things like nationalism. It means before you are some maybe an Akan, you are a Ghanaian first. It means things like marginalization of people based on their ethnicities, based on their skin color. I think that they're actually going to be reduced in places where we have benevolent dictatorship, right? Because people are going to be taught that no matter where you come from in the country, no matter the color of your skin, no matter how much you have, you're a Ghanaian first. This is your brother, this is your sister, so on and so forth. People are going to have like greater social cohesion and things like that, right? But then thirdly, how we are going to have better justice systems. Dictatorships are characterized by how strong you have a rule of law. Notice that most of these people are quote unquote narcissistic in nature. They don't want anything that will like damper their image that they have. They portray themselves as saviors. They portray themselves as strong protectors of their people. It means anything that stands in the way of that image, anything that threatens their image, things like corruption, things like bribery, racketeering, and stuff like that. I think that they're likely going to clamp down upon because it's a form of self-defense. It's a way for them to be like protect that self-image that they're painted to the people. It means they're going to have that incentive to make sure that justice systems work. The citizens feel like enough trust in them to believe that, you know what, this leader, in as much as we didn't choose him, he still makes sure that things work because that's the image that they want to put to their people. Then we prove to you that international relationships are better off in our world because in as much as dictatorship is a form of governance that like most of the world does not subscribe to, we're talking about a benevolent dictatorship, and I've already explained that most businesses don't necessarily care the system of governance that you are upholding. But things that they care about, like human rights, are things that are not being abused in a benevolent dictatorship. I've already explained that. Profit potential is something that they are going to look at. In so far as you have a stable economy, they're going to invest in your country. OG, quickly. Sorry. Right?
Please, yes,
I'm moving on. The
redefine what
largest pushback that you get from them then is on how we are going to have to transition power. If I prove to you that this violent transition of power that they're trying to say is something that's less likely to happen, but even when it does happen, it's a good thing in our world, right? Notice that the reason why people change governments is when they realize that the government is failing to provide for them. The government is making life difficult for them. Taxes are inordinately high. They don't have access to water. They don't have access to food. They don't have access to shelter. They don't have access to water. All these things, because of the points that I've explained to you, I've already proven how it's less likely for these things to happen because these people prioritize welfare, they prioritize infrastructural developments. They're going to make sure that their citizens are their power because nationalization and nationalism is something that they prioritize. They're going to invest in schools, hospitals, education, blue-collar education, like white-collar education, whatever that they can to make sure that their people are empowered because that is where their manpower comes from. That is where their power comes from. It means the likelihood of people to revolt against them is less because they are providing every single thing that they need to be provided. But even in the highly unlikely events that these people even don't like decide to revolt against them, we think that it is then justified for them because that is what like a transition is supposed to be like. If you think that these people are left to listen to you, like you are supposed to change them out. I've already explained through things like low-level elections, through things like referendums, people are able to channel their grievances, their dictators to listen to them. And if they talk about like things like, oh, people are power hungry, blah blah blah, notice that all these dictatorships that fell, they fell because they weren't listening to their councils. Napoleon Bonaparte fell because of his own pride. He had a war council which was advising him. I don't think that those are the people that you should be basing your examples on. Show us exclusively a dictator who listened to his people, a benevolent dictator who listened to his people, took their grievances into account, and still fell. You can't point it to any real world example, right? Insofar as we have shown you exclusively how there's benefits to the state, there's benefits to the economy, their international standing is something that's still largely maintained. We believe that we win from side staging.
Okay, we thank the member of government for that fine speech. Can we have the member of opposition
Yeah, hello. Yeah.
start off the case for closing opposition? Here. Member of opposition, are you on the call?
Hello. Am I audible? Am I perfectly audible? Hello.
Oh no, I'm sorry, you're not. I think it's your network. Member of opposition, can you just maybe you should leave the call and rejoin because it's very choppy.
Hello. Is it better now? Hello. Am I perfectly audible now?
Yeah. Yes, you're clear now. I can hear you.
Okay. And if at any point you can't hear me, and please point it out to me. Having a bit network problems. Okay, so my POI preference here, unmute yourself and then ask the POI. I would not be looking at the chat space. My preferred pronouns and he, him. So assuming I'm audible, I begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. OG seems to not grasp the gravity of the lives lost whenever a dictator is coming onto power. I blame that partly on our opening because they failed to characterize this very well and paint a picture it is needed, right? You need to understand that forever a dictator has to come to power, they have to kill a lot of lives. It is very violent. It is not a peaceful transfer of power. They take their power by force. They kill a lot of people. A lot of infrastructure is lost. And even after coming to power, in order for them to hold on to that power, they need to silence the opposing voice. I.e., they need to kill all the people who are opposing them. They need to silence them. They need to imprison them. They need to assassinate them. This is what we are dealing with. The reason this framing is very, very important is that I'm showing you the brutality of what a dictator is at its core. No matter how benevolent it is, they need to kill people because that's how they can get to power. That's how they can hold on to their power, right? The first principle, in our first case, is a principled case, right? The first principle would argue is about how an action is bad no matter the benefit you would get from said action. I'm getting feedback. Hi, please. Is someone unmuted? Is there a problem? Hi. Hello. Hi. Was I audible?
Yes,
you're clearly audible. Go ahead.
Okay. Please, what was my time? I paused it. What was my time? Hi. Can I please get the time left?
Your time from my end is on 126. It was paused on 126.
Okay. Okay. I continue my speech in 3, 2, 1. Okay, the first principle then would argue is about an action is bad no matter the benefit you get from said action. I.e., you can't justify a benefit even. You can't justify a benefit so far as that particular said benefit is as a result of something bad. Killing is killing. No matter what God comes to tell you about the benefits they would get from the dictator killing someone, it is not justified. Killing is still killing. The reason why that principle is particularly very important is two things. One, life is precious and must be protected. We think people's lives matter, and killing them just so you can get the benefits associated with gas laws in itself is principally wrong. The second thing then is about the fact that morals class of society is still existent. We still frown on murder. We still think murder is wrong. We still think killing is wrong. Society hasn't degenerated to such a point that we still think that killing someone is good. Like, those are the reasons why this principle is particularly very important. The reason why this is very, very bad is that, one, you are underplaying the deaths that occurred as a result of the takeover. What they do on their world is that in an attempt to accrue all those benefits associated, they are painting the leader in a good light. They're painting the dictator in a good light. It means they're underplaying the deaths, they're underplaying the horrors associated with the takeover. This in itself becomes principally wrong. The pushback you get from CG then is that the fact that the life is of value only when the individual himself thinks the life itself is of value. You need to understand this. They don't prove to us how they make the lives of individuals on their side comparatively better, provided that we show you that there's the cost of people's lives getting lost. That in itself beats their whole case. Because for them to accrue that particular benefit, it means that they need to prove how they make people's lives on their world comparatively better. They don't do this. The second case then is about the potential for change, right? Because OG comes to fiat competence, right? The competence of the dictator. You need to understand, the only thing stated in the motion is that the dictator is benevolent. When you're benevolent, it doesn't equate to you being able to govern a nation. Benevolence doesn't equate to competence. They come to fiat competence. It's not something they can come and fiat here. Because the reason why it is very, very important is that there is no surety of the skill set of said dictator. The reason why this becomes incredibly bad is that the likelihood of changing anything in the nation becomes very less. Because for you to be able to change anything, for you to be able to come up with good policies to promote the nation, to change the nation for the better, you need to be competent as a leader. You need to have the necessary skill set to be able to achieve set policies, to be able to think about set policies. They don't prove to you how the dictator gets those skills. They don't prove to you, they just fiat it. It's not something like that. The comparative then is that the leaders in our world, it's a democracy. You need to understand, it's a democracy. In a democracy, before a leader gets into power, two things: the leader is vetted. The leader doesn't just get into power. There's vetted. There are other candidates. They vet and then they choose the best candidate out of all of them. Second, the economic policies are evaluated. They evaluate the economic policies of each leaders. The citizens themselves evaluate them, and then they vote for the person they think is with the likeliest of economic policies to work, and then the citizens vote for that person. It means that before these people get into power, there is at least some level of surety of their skill set. This thing is non-existent in their world. This means that even when there is a potential for change, at least on our side, you get more change on our side because of the fact that there is a presence of that skill set. They don't achieve that particular skill set because they have not proven it in their world. We tell you that at least to an extent, there is skill sets on our world because people are vetted before they get into that particular position of power. Then the next extension then will be about how you need to understand that underperforming democracy doesn't automatically equate to corruption like they come to see, right? Things like diplomatic relations, pandemics, and etc. are some of the causes that lead to a democracy underperforming. Even in their best case scenario, we say that the problem here is corruption. The reason why we still beat the entire case is that, one, the checking mechanism present in our world. How? You need to understand that, one, there is presence of opposing parties existing in a democracy. It means whenever you are in a democracy, it means that there's another party competing with you to win the next election. So the other party constantly criticizes you as the government. The government is not doing the job, or the government is doing this, the government is doing this bad. There's still the presence of that opposing party existing. Two, they still have the need to win the next election. So they need to provide to an extent the needs of the people, because that's the only way the people are going to vote for them in the next election. So to an extent, they need to provide a level of services to the people in order for them to win the election. The reason why this is very, very important is that the comparative then will be that on their world, there is no checking mechanism. The dictator is basically the judge, jury, and everything. It means that their word is the law. It means the likelihood of corruption existing in that world is far worse. At least you provide you with a checking mechanism. A second argument on that is that you need to understand, dictators don't come on their own. They have friends, the people that help them to get into power, right? They don't get into power on their own strengths. The people are there that help them. The reason why this is very, very important is that they are less likely to criticize the actions of said people who help them to get into power. It means they are less likely to check in those individuals. Even if we say we buy their arguments for a second and say the benevolent leader is not corrupt, then they can't say the friends of that benevolent leader is not corrupt. There's a possibility that the friends are corrupt because the leader because they help the leader be complicit and then watch them continue their corrupt activities. That means corruption gets best on their world. The next extension then will be how get pushback from the opposition. Why? Because of the fact that they are being oppressed. Two, because of the fact that they are denying their rights. The impact of this then is two things, right? It means that the leader will have to silence the opposition. Leader would have to kill more people because of the fact that the opposition wants their rights, they want their freedom. So it means the dictator would have to silence those people. You have to kill. This means more and more lives are going to be lost unnecessarily. This in itself becomes a problem here. On our side, we provide the opposition with a way they can criticize, legitimate ground for them to criticize the government. This thing is non-existent because it's an autocratic government. The opposition has no choice than to use violence means to oppose. That means they're going to disrupt the peace of the nation. We provide the opposition on our world with a way, a legitimate ground for them to criticize the government without the chaos, without the deaths, proud to.
Thank you for that fine speech. As I said before, please try to keep your own time as much as I will be telling you myself, so that I can unmute and badger you at the end of your speech. Thank you once again, Emo, for that fine speech. Can we have the government whip to close off the case for the government bench in this debate? Hear, hear.
Hello,
Hello?
am I audible?
Well, somewhat. Could you just read out the motion to confirm?
Okay. This house prefers a benevolent dictatorship to an underperforming democracy.
Well, you sound somewhat muffled, but I think can any of my panelists confirm that you can hear? Then
Yeah, but she's distant, a little bit far from the microphone.
Yep, muffled.
Okay, is this
muffled.
better?
No, not for me. Okay, see.
Okay, let me change
Are
my
you far from the microphone?
No, I'm not, but let me change my kissing push. Probably because of where I go. Okay. Hi, is this better?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
fine.
for me.
Okay. Okay. Please give me minutes to set my timer. Okay. Sorry for the delay. Okay. I begin my speech in 3, 2. I begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel, first thing to notice on the entire opposition bench, right? They do not prove to us how bad democracies is better on the life of the citizen, the economy, etc., etc. Then to the opposition benchers again. See, having a voice, choice of a government in of itself, like having your having your right to choice and all those things is useless if you do not have access to basic amenities, food, water, etc. These are the things that actually guarantee the freedom that these people actually talk about. Because if you don't have food, water, shelter, all these things, you do not have freedom in the society. And that is what has wants people to have their access to basic amenities, their basic thing that they need, so that they can have a good standard of living, that they can have good living, their life would be okay for them. That's why we think a benevolent dictator would do that, right? Before I get to our cases and what to bring to you today's debate, I'd like to engage the opposition bench, right? Firstly, engaging CEO. CEO comes in and the first thing they tell us is that the benevolent dictator has to kill and cause distraction before they come into power. Panel, the benevolent dictator doesn't have to specifically kill people or cause distraction before they can come into power. There are other means that this particular person can come into power. There are means like popular support. When the people support this particular person, he or she can come into power. Mind you, my panel already flagged that benevolent dictators actually have the support of the people, so that therefore freedom of speech, etc., are actually accorded. So the point that a leader will come into power as a benevolent dictator, he or she can have the support of the people. He doesn't necessarily have to kill people before he or she can come into power. Secondly, can come into power. Next thing that CEO tells us about, like they try to like talk about principles and how it's not right for somebody to kill and then somebody to kill to come into power when life is important, etc. Panel, principles do not outweigh benefit. No matter how the dictator comes into power, if they're making the lives of the current citizens better and everybody is comfortable, we think that it is okay. The fact that it's not right doesn't mean that the person shouldn't come into power. Mind you, the person doesn't necessarily kill to come into power. So if I come into power through popular support, if I am making the lives of the people better, I think it is okay because the benefits that the people are getting, the entire citizenry is as our main focus. But the point that the person is making their lives better, we think that it is okay. Next thing they say is, oh, the leader's friends can have influence on the person because he or she might be good, but the person's friend might be called. Panel C. The friend of the leader is not the person that we care about because they are not ruling. The person we care about is the leader. His friends are actually like secondary issues that we don't care about in today's debate. Let's talk about the competence of the person, right? Panel, before the leader comes into power or gains the support of the people as a benevolent dictator, the people know that he is competent enough to do that particular thing. That's why they actually accept him as a benevolent dictator. They don't just say, okay, come into power because this government is bad, we don't want democracy anymore, so come into power. They know that the particular person has done something, the person can do it. That's why the person comes, they allow the person as a benevolent dictator to rule them. The person doesn't just come up and be a leader, right? Now, engaging OO on what they bring to us this debate. First thing to talk about is checks and balances. As how they have checks and balances in, like, even though the democracies are bad, they have checks and balances, etc., and we don't have that. Panel, realize that these checks and balances do not actually work in their democracies. How? There's like political influence, etc., etc. You tell us that, oh, the executive is independent, judiciary is independent, the legislature is independent, other institutions of government are also independent. Yet still, we see the executive influencing other like sectors or institutions of government with influencing their decision making, etc., etc. So the issue of like their checks and balances that they prove that is actually existent is inexistent. You see the executive influencing like the ins and outs of like the parliament. You see the judiciary influencing the ins and outs of the parliament. So we don't think that issue of checks and balances is something that should hold. Even if you want checks and balances to exist in a society, we think that the livelihood of the people is more important than than checks and balances. If the people are not living an okay life, you want them to care about checks and balances. No, I care about my life, so I don't care about checks and balances. That's like you're talking about, right? You can talk about when there's citizen participation in their regime as opposed to as panel. We already told you that a benevolent dictator in benevolent dictatorship, the leader has the support of the people. So we think that at that particular point in time, when the person has the support of the people, then you see that there is actually citizen participation because the people support the person who is leading them. What's not important. Next, we talk about is peaceful transition of power. I think I've already addressed that particular issue when I was rebating to you. Panel, now what do we bring to you in today's debate, right? We tell you about how there's going to be a more stable and stable economy, and there's going to be much like higher investment. How do we say it? Why do we say this, right? Panel, we tell you that we say that it's not all bad when there's a benevolent dictator. Why? We think that to the point where the investors think that a particular country is doing well with their leader, and the leader in a particular country is doing very, very well. They actually come in to invest more in a particular person. And then we get to see that the investments actually yield much more fruit. The country goes on well because in democracy, you realize that we have like political parties, they have their own political ideology, they have their own interests, etc., etc. So the point investment come into the country, these particular leaders take their cut into their pocket. By the time that they finish sharing their cut, etc., they're like the money or the investment at a particular different donor or country brought to them, it's finished. But suppose it's just a single leader or dictator, he or she is caring about the work for the people. People are watching, so he or she would definitely like be much more transparent to the people, much more accountable to the people. So even if actually catches their issue on transparency, that these people are not transparent. We think that people are much more transparent because when the investors come, it is like news. Everybody gets to know that this particular person has like what investment, etc. So we think that particular people are much more transparent than the underperforming democracies, right? Secondly, we tell you that there's like social cohesion, and then because of like the social. Oh, am I audible, please? Hi. Hello.
Yeah. You are.
Yes, you're audible.
Oh, sorry. My
You're
partner just texted
audible.
me I had gone. My partner told me I had gone off, so I thought I wasn't audible. Sorry. Yeah, I think I have 40 seconds left. Let me just wrap up.
Yes, you do.
Okay. So, panel, we think that to the point that there's a benevolent dictator, there's like social cohesion. How? Because you see people in that particular regime will be taught that they are one people. There's nothing like, oh, there's the MPP, there's an NC, or like political parties that are like around. So everybody has their different political ideology, their different like political participation, etc. So if I'm MPP, I don't mingle with NDC people. It's like a single leader, particular leader. Everybody knows that we are one people. So there's nothing like separation or like there's nothing like division and what's not in the fight. So we think that a benevolent data is better than an underperforming democracy. Panel, if you don't get anything from side like closing government rights, we'll be able to prove to you how, as opposed to whichever impact that like side or opposition brings to you today's debate, we put to you that those particular impacts, you get them better in our world, and then like the impact that they say that are worse off in our world are even much more worse off in their world than in our world. I'm not being proud to propose.
We thank the government whip for that fine speech. Can we have the opposition whip to stop this debate?
Can I be seen and heard clearly?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just set my timer.
Oh, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm guessing I can be seen and heard clearly, so I'm just going to put.
You're not very clear.
I think it's the chair that should reconnect.
Loud and clear.
So does it mean I'll have to turn off my camera to make it better for her?
Can someone confirm that I'm clearly audible now?
Because I could hear Hineku clearly.
Yeah, we should probably mention her in chat so that she will know.
Your line has been breaking for a while now. Could you try saying something? Let's be sure you can hear us clearly.
Okay. Just to confirm, am I audible now?
Not
You're audible, but you're breaking.
I think I should turn off my my video. Probably that could be a problem.
Audible. All right. Well, I think maybe as long as I can hear the speaker, that shouldn't be.
Okay. Okay. So I'm guessing I am loud and clear. I begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. I think what this debate has lacked is color, a picture painting and world building of how these people come into power. Because even when you have the holiest person and the kindest person, the way in which they come into power is characterized by blood and dust. Because you have to suppress opposition parties who would not agree to dictatorship as a means of governance. Because you have to engage in crackdown on dissidents. Because you have to fight against the United States of America and Europe through economic sanctions because they are against dictatorship, even when these dictators are benevolent individuals. At the end of this introduction, I want you to ask them, what is the price do we pay for benevolence? Because what government tells you is that it is at the expense of the tears of the forgotten. First thing I'll do in my speech is to take down closing government, because I think closing government's case is quite interesting. They say that there is a percentage that these people come into power not through all of the things that I've said, but probably through popularism and nationalism. Here's why that is equally a problem. It's because of certain things like how we've seen India and how Modi plays out when he passed the Citizen Amendment Act that was inherently discriminatory against Muslim refugees because of the idea of nationalism of Hinduism. This is quite important because if the way in which the leader comes into power is through nationalism, it means that they have to represent the popular individuals that exist. It means that minorities get oppressed. The comparative in our world is that at least there is some level of change that can exist in terms of changing of governance, and even the person is benevolent and their benevolence is as a result of nationalism, it is equally something that is very terrible for my other person that exists irrespective of their identity. But in what ways does this person listen to people when there is no media that can air the grievances of these individuals? In what way do you listen to the citizens when there is no parliamentary representatives that have been voted for by the various constituencies to air their grievances? Even if that incentive exists, the structures of dictatorship prevents these things from existing. This is quite important because the existence of a legislature and debate and representation of constituencies and etc. that exists with a democracy, even if that democracy is weak, it's an inherent part of listening to individuals. It means that they cannot get that mechanism. And I want this to be quite clear in our speech. There is a huge assumption that comes from government that you have a very smart person that is going to come into power. Even if this person is benevolent, you cannot be sure that he's smart enough to govern the country properly. The reason why we can at least be able to get that is because, one, political parties engage in certain things like campaigns. Political parties engage in certain things like vetting of the people in which are going to represent them. And the reason why they have this incentive is because they want you to see that the person that is representing them is someone that is strong. So even if this democracy is characterized by corruption, at least the people that come into power are people we can say to an extent have this at least vetting, and we can assure that these people can do the job, as compared to having a dictator that no one vetted, that no one approved, that no one is sure of their skill set, but comes into power anyway. But I think it is quite important for you to recognize what comes from opening government, because it's quite interesting. Opening government case runs along this line. There can't be uprising from citizens, and that is an incentive to make sure that these benevolent dictators do good. What is the response for this? What are the causes of uprising in a lot of instances? Uprising will come as a result of arbitrary things, like people in India that are Muslims do not agree with the way in which the people, with a person in power, be someone who is a Hindu. This is quite important because religious divide and things like cultural divide causes a type of system whereby people are against the people in power, not because they are bad, but just because of the sheer reason that they are not from their tribe. The reason why this is worse is because you can never change that person and put the person in your tribe as a representative. And that is equally worse. Why? For a couple of reasons. Is that even if this dictator is somebody who is doing well, the perception that individuals have for this dictator is one of fear, that we fear that this person is not from our group, our group can never get represented. And this is quite important because it is the reason why a lot of insurgents group come up. It's the reason why people exist in echo chambers and consistently perpetuate ideas in the entirety. Why is this something that is inherently wrong? It means that the likelihood of chaos and backlash is something that's immense, i.e., even when the policies are good and even when the policies are being passed, these individuals that feel that they can never get the representation will fight against these policies and fight against the people in power because they do not agree with them. And that is quite problematic because you can rarely even get any development in these places in the first place because there's a lot of conflict that exists. What is the implication of this response? It's on two foods. Even if opening government is true about the illusion of choice, that illusion means that people still feel that they have choice and they are less likely to go against the government. And this is where the comparative is quite important. One, you have no choice. Two, you know you have no choice. There's no illusion that you have no choice. You're most likely going to clash against the government. But then secondly, it means that they can't get access to the important things that they think it is important, like development, etc., because most of these things are going to be eroded by this type of groups and etc. Right? What then is my third response? It is the idea of speed. They say that these people are centralized. It means that they can have speed in the way in which they do in their processes. First of all, if the person that is engaging in speed is engaging through bad policies, because you've shown you why there's the likelihood of these dictators not even to be the best candidates in the first place. But then secondly, the problem is that a lot of policies will as debate to whether these policies are good or bad. Debate happens in parliamentary settings where we have opposition parties that are engaging in each other. If we don't have that debate, we can't be sure that these policies are inherently good. Even when they are passed with speed, they are most likely going to be bad policies. Before the 1 minute is up, any POI, opening government. Okay, no POI. I continue. I think the point that Nanjo tries to prove is quite important. Nanjo never says that there is never going to be any foreign investment. The problem that the amount of foreign investments that can exist is hugely limited, especially when these countries need it. Why is this something that is true? Because the United States of America is not going to be willing to be engaging in trade with your country if your country is existing under a dictatorship, because they uphold the principles of democracy. Even if that dictator is somebody who is benevolent, that backlash still exists from international institutions, meaning that the amount of investment that you even get from those countries' companies does not exist because the sanctions prevent those companies from existing in the first place. But then I want to talk about the final thing, right, before the time goes on, and it's about the whole issue of like corruption that exists in these particular spaces. I think we want to make it quite clear. We agree that corruption can on our side. We equally agree that corruption can equally exist on their side. At least there's an amount of checking that exists on our side as compared to their side. Their side is a world that drowns people in tears and that drowns people in blood. It's a world that does not allow people to get access to choice and liberation. We are proud to be closing.
Che, you are still breaking.